The funny thing is that Michael and I love looking at houses. But looking for houses in the context of, I got 20 days left. I got 19 days left. I got 14. We're at 10 days.
We're supposed to be moved out by this day next week, and we don't know where we're going to live.
Yeah, that just does not land the same. Anytime people would hang out with us, it'd be like, y'all aren't worried.
Y'all ain't scared.
Yeah.
What's up, everybody? I'm Michael.
And I'm Amanda.
And today we are going to be talking about our move and how we actually downsized. So, babe, how has this process of finding a new home and looking at houses and finally now being in our new place, like, how does it feel for you?
It feels really good. I know that this is God's choice for us. And throughout the whole process, I just kept telling Michael, I want to be in the home that God has his hand on.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to be anywhere where God is not.
Come on, preach about it.
And so anytime we'd walk into a home, I want to feel the pneuma.
Come on.
Which is the breath of the Spirit.
Yeah.
I need to feel that.
Oof.
And we didn't feel that in a lot of the places.
Nah, which is wild because when you look on Zillow and you look at a place on Zillow, it's like, oh, do we even need to visit this place? Let's just put in the application, like, let's go. Mm-hmm. Then you show up and you see doggone demons at the doorway, and it's just like, oh, I don't want to live in a demon house.
That actually happened.
Yeah.
That was an actual conversation.
That's a real thing.
Yeah, but we'll get to that. So currently we are in our new spot. Now we are in the light area aesthetic, which I don't mind. I actually quite like it. The last home that we were in, we loved. It was about 4,200 square feet, huge backyard, 3-car garage, and the city that we wanted to live in, beautiful area.
Wonderful.
And we had sweet neighbors, and it was just a very beautiful home, and we had never been in a home that nice before. And whenever we applied, we were the third people to apply. So we weren't even entirely sure that we would get it, but we got approved and it was ours. And we absolutely loved that home. About a year in, I'm thinking about how much I love this house. And I hear the Holy Spirit say to me so clearly, you're not going to be here long. And I was like, ugh, I know that was you, Lord. It wasn't like a doubt in my mind.
Yeah,
I knew that it was him. I shared it with Michael. But of course, I'm like, God, it's going to have to be you. You're going to have to drag me out this place. Because I love it here. And I would constantly say, I love it here. I would buy this house. You know, like, I wish I could just stay here. We'll just keep renting and keep renting and keep renting. I don't want to buy a house. I just want to stay here because I loved it so much.
Yeah.
And then a year in or so, I also had a dream. And in this dream, Michael is sitting in the living room with me, sitting across from me. And he just says, what do you think about downsizing? It's like, what do you mean? He's like, I mean, we have all of this space. What do you think about downsizing? I've been thinking about downsizing, and I've been praying about it. That's all I remember about the dream. And the dream was so realistic to me that the next morning I was like, babe, did you talk to me about downsizing? And you were just like, no, I don't think so. And I was like, maybe I had a dream. And that's when we started looking for houses briefly then, right?
Yeah, because I think we had gotten up to close to the end of the first year of our lease. And we didn't know at what rate they were going to renew the lease at. We actually had some friends, Jason and Kristen, who live in a house nearby. And then they came by and they were looking at the house. They were like, oh, yeah, houses like this, you know, they probably rent for $5,500, $6,000. And we like
freaked out.
We were like, what in the world are you telling us?
I'm not about to pay that.
And so we had to like prepare ourselves, be like, yo, let's start looking. But this was a year ago.
And then we just ended up talking to our landlords and they raised it. How much?
It went from $3,745 to $4,028.
So we stayed another year. And then at the in December of last year, our landlords gave us a notice that our lease wasn't renewing. And they never gave us a reason. I mean, we could always speculate,
Yeah,
but
for sure.
we weren't given a reason. And so we just began looking, and all I could chalk it up to was God told us.
Yeah.
No, he'd have to drag me out, so it had to be this way.
One of the things that I thought about was the story in the Old Testament. There's an account of Saul being killed on the battlefield by someone, and then there's another account of Saul like falling on his sword. Mm-hmm. And it's like two different accounts that kind of contradict each other. But later in the Old Testament, it just basically said God killed Saul. And at the end of the day, no matter how it happened, which story like was more accurate than the other, it's really inconsequential, because the point is that God wanted it to happen, and so it happened. And that's kind of how I felt about the house. Like, was it this? Was it that? Was it this? Was it that? And at the end of the day, it was just like, the reason it was because God wanted it to. And it was going to happen in some way, shape, or form anyway.
And then the house hunt began.
Dun, dun, dun.
How was the house searching process for you?
It was exhausting, honestly.
Yeah.
We looked at a house that we both really liked. It was $4,500, so it was about $500 more than what we were paying. This seems good. It's close. We still like it. We're still within our means. I was like, okay, so this still works. They wanted to sell the house in 14 months. So in 14 months, we were looking for a longer lease, because in 14 months, we were going to find ourselves in the same position anyway. I'm thinking to myself, man, I really am not feeling this property. Like, I know Amanda loves it. We looked at it twice. Amanda's all happy about it. She's sharing it with friends and family and her friends. Yeah, it's just, and I'm just like,
we were on one accord, though.
We were definitely on a one accord. I don't want to make it sound like Amanda just went rogue, and like that's not the case. But I would say that the first time I saw the house, I did not love it as much as you loved it. We saw it again, and we liked it more after seeing 12 other houses, and then coming back to that one. It was like, okay, this is
the best option.
Legitimately the best option. It makes sense. And in times of confusion, I just go with like, what makes the most sense in this situation if I'm not exactly sure what God is saying and how he's directing. So I was like, let's just go with that. So we get to, it's like a Wednesday, and we had put in the application for this property, and we're feeling really good about it. And it was just like, there was something in me. I was just like, man, I'm really not feeling this house. And I didn't know if it was because they were sticklers about having to leave up the curtain rods or like store them because they were ugly.
They were ugly,
but they wanted to keep them, and we didn't want them in there. And we asked if they could move them out, and they were like, no. It was just like, okay. They're like, but you can take them down if you are willing to put them back up in 14 months when you have to move out or buy the house, which the house was on the market for $950,000. And even if you put 20% down on that, you were looking at a $8,000 a month mortgage for 30 years.
Hard pass.
Super hard pass.
It's a no from me.
Yeah, it was tough. And so I was like, man, I really am just not feeling this. But it's what makes the most sense. And so that night I prayed to the Lord. I said, Lord, this looks like the direction this is going. So I was like, Lord, close any door that you don't want open, and open every door that you want open. I'm trusting you with that, because God, I don't know. I got to find a place for my family to sleep though. And literally the next morning, our real estate agent called me and was like, hey, I have bad news. This property, they said that they don't want anyone staying in the property that's self-employed. And I said, great. That is not bad news, because I prayed about this and God made it clear so that way we wouldn't have to even make the decision. Lord, make the decision for us. We just going to keep walking.
Yeah. Really. That prayer shut a lot of doors.
Thank God. Because I
thank God.
Duh. Yeah. So you go into the home search assuming certain things that turn out to not be so true. You go into a home search thinking, oh, if I see this house on Zillow and I like it, and I qualify for it, and there are no other applicants. Bada bing, bada boom, pow. Mm-hmm. But there,
it don't work that way.
It don't work that way. It's, oh, well, this house is also for sale. And so we're also doing showings. And so we may rent it out, but we also want to see if we get an offer.
That happened with another property that was like right across the street from our place.
Then it's, oh, you know, this house looks great on Zillow. Let's apply. Let's go. And then it turns out, oh, this house was actually rented out 3 weeks ago and it's not even available. We just hadn't taken it off of Zillow yet. We literally looked at, I think, 25 houses.
Yeah.
We walked in 25 different houses to try to find a place. And while we were doing this, we were open to upsizing or downsizing. We looked at a place for rent that was as low as $2,800. And then we looked at a place that was as high as
55.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I was open. I was like, I would like to downsize to just save money. But if we need to pay more, then we'll pay more. Your parents played a huge part in that because they stay with us and they are so helpful.
It's a blessing.
It's a huge blessing. And so I was like, I'll pay whatever price we need to pay in order to ensure that they're still comfortable and they can stay with us. So it was a lot. Well, how about you though? I feel like I've been talking a lot. How do you feel about the process of home shopping and searching?
I would say I knew it was going to work out, but I was just getting so exhausted. And I wasn't necessarily seeing that hope. And it kind of felt like a loss because I'm like, oh, it just kind of feels like what we've known is just being taken from us abruptly, you know? And that really bothered me. But I was like, God, you already told me about this a year ago. Mm-hmm. I know you have a plan in this, and I know that that plan is good. Mm-hmm. And so I kept clinging to that, but I was very much so exhausted.
Yeah.
And so you want to tell the story about how you landed on this one?
Yes. So we had actually decided somewhat on a house that was fat. It was like $5,000 a month, $4,900 technically, but it was
beautiful.
Oh my Lord. It was an upgrade from the house that we previously had. It had a full playground in the backyard. Like, I'm not talking about a swing set. That playground legit was probably a few $1,000s. Mm-hmm. And had all this backyard furniture that came with it with the TV. I mean, it was like super nice. I walked in the closet and the people were still moving out and there was just like Louis Vuitton boxes all over the place. Like, this mug was fat.
Yeah. I called it the entertainer because I'm like, we would entertain a lot at this place. We like having people over. Yeah. I'm like, we would always have people over at this place because there's so much space and the entire backyard is an entertaining backyard. Yeah. It comes with the TV, it comes with all the outdoor patio stuff, like it was huge backyard, fire pit. It's just like, you're supposed to be having parties here. And
originally I was like, oh no, that first property, we had seen that one right before this one and it was just as accommodating, not as nice, but just as accommodating. And I was just like, well, why would I pay $4,900 for this one? And then when I could get the one we just saw, it's less, but it's $3,200. We're not the type of people to just be like flashy and like live above our means and in order to be showy or anything like that.
There weren't a lot of options.
There was just no option. There were no options. Yeah. We're like, hey, we're down to downsize. We're down to cut back. Like, we're totally down. But like the agent for that house just stopped communicating with our agent, just like ghosted her. And it was just like, what in the world? And so I was like, okay, well, we have to actually make a decision. But, you know, that house, the big fat one, the castle, when we reached out to our agent, she was like, actually, that one just, I think, like had just come off the market.
And then doors just started shutting because we flung some applications after that. We're just like, this house is okay. We'll fling. You get application.
And I was finally like, okay, I got to go out and find something myself. So I was like, you know what? Let me just hit the road and see what happens. I hop in the car. I go on Zillow. I request to see a house. The real estate agent's like, oh yeah, here's the code. And I go and I check it out. And went to the first house and I was just like, all right, well, it's technically move-in ready, but it was dark. And it smelled like curry. And I saw Hindu signs and memorabilia all over the place. Paraphernalia, I think is actually the appropriate word. And I was just like, Amanda's not going to vibe with this. I don't vibe with it either, but I was thinking more of like I got to find a place to be.
And we saw a lot of that. That was a huge factor in our decisions because there were multiple homes that were absolutely gorgeous that we could see ourselves living in, except for the fact that there were Hindu gods taped by the door, or, you know, it's just obvious that this belonged to Hindus and they have, like you say, paraphernalia. And I'm like, I don't know what God they pray to and who is lording over this land. Mm-hmm. And I do not want to subject my family to that. And I'm going to be held responsible for the decisions I make with the information I'm shown. And I just don't feel peace about this. I don't care how nice this house is. It's a great house, but it's a no for me, fam.
Yep. While I'm at this house, I'm thinking to myself, okay, I've driven 15 minutes to check this house out. It's not the move, but I'm already up here. So maybe I can just find another house in the area just to see, just to check. And so I call the agent for the house that we are in right now. And I'm like, hey, I see this house. I'm 5 minutes up the road. Can I check out the house? And she's like, yeah, sure. Just send me your driver's license and you can go check it out. I pull up to this house and I see a car that's already in the driveway. And I'm like, this house is vacant. I already saw the pictures on Zillow. Like, this is supposed to be vacant. Like, what's going on? So I ring the doorbell and someone opens the door and they're like, oh, I didn't know someone was coming to visit the house today. I was like, oh, it was just, I literally just set this up like 10 minutes ago. You know, is the house vacant? And they're like, yeah, we're the owners. We're just here with this guy from Lowe's who's like taking a look at a window spring or something. But they were like, sure, come check out the house. Walk into the house. And I'm like, oh, this is nice. Smells good. It's clean, freshly painted, like open. Oh, this is nice. This is nice. And they're showing me the house and stuff like that. And they're bringing me, you know, around the house and like, oh, this would be great for kids. And they're like selling me on the house, which was like awesome because we have been in situations up until this point where it's just like, we just felt like a number. And so we get up to this loft area actually. And it's an Asian couple from South Korea. And they were like, oh yeah, this is an area where the husband prays here. And I'm thinking to myself, given all the experiences, I'm like, okay, South Korea, is that Buddha, Confucius? I'm like, I'm trying to think. I'm like, but I just threw a flyer out there. I was like, oh, so you pray up here. Do you go to a church nearby? And the guy says, yeah, we go to Life Church over here in this town up the road. And I was just like, oh, that's great. And they're like, you're a Christian? I'm like, yeah, we're Christians. They're like, oh, that's so awesome. Hallelujah. Thank you, Jesus. And I'm just like, what is happening? And the last person who lived in this house, they lived here for 5 years, which was a big thing for me because I was like, oh, that's great. They're open to long-term leases. That's awesome. So that way we don't have to keep moving around. And they're like, yeah, just, you know, treat the house like your own. You know, if you want to buy it from us one day, great. And I was just like, what in the world? This is great. And the house, they were offering it for $3,200 for 12 months. And I was like, any discounts for like 24 months? They're like, $3,100. And I was just like, say less. And it turned out that later we see that the house that we're currently in is on Zillow for $4,500. So we were paying $4,028. They bumped it up to $45 and some change. So we're literally saving $1,400 a month every month for the next 2 years. And it was just awesome. Like they were like, man, this is so crazy because the person who rented the house for 5 years, we were here doing something, not expecting anyone, and they just came and knocked on the door like how you just did. And I'm just like, yo, must be God, you know? So I called Amanda, I hit up Amanda, and I was just like,
I saw a text actually, and it said, I think I found the one.
oh, and how did you feel? We didn't talk about this. So how did you feel when you saw that text?
I wasn't hopeful. I wasn't hopeful. So I had just gone out to lunch with someone, and I was just telling my goodbyes to her, and I said, I just got a text from Michael that he thinks he found the one. And she knew that I was in the middle of this search, and it was just like exhausting. She's like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. I'm like, yeah, I know. We'll see.
Time will tell.
Time will tell. And from the pictures, it just kind of looked regular to me. I'm just like, okay, I'm just going to have to see it. I'm going to have to hear the story. And then when I heard the story, I was like, okay, it sounds like God. Right now, I feel discouraged just because it's a massive downside. If I can just keep it real.
Keep it a stack.
It wasn't a downgrade. But a huge downsize.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm used to having this amount of space, and you're falling in love with a house that's 2,900 square feet.
Coming from 4,200.
Coming from 42.
So 1,300 square feet difference.
Yeah. And Michael and I have lived in like less than 1,000 square feet before.
Yeah,
and we're fine. It's just the amount of people who live with us.
That's the thing.
That's the thing, you know? And I was just feeling like, man, I'm kind of grateful because this just might be God. It sounds like God, but I got to walk through it myself, you know? So he takes me, I see the first spot that I absolutely loved. I thought it was lovely, but it had no backyard. And I'm just like, I really like this house. I'm still willing to apply, but the no backyard thing sucks because I like our kids play in the backyard, and I also like to garden. And so how would I garden? But the next one that we pull up to, I'm walking around. I'm just really feeling it out. Beautiful white kitchen. In the living room, there are vaulted ceilings. I look in the backyard, and I'm like, I could garden out there. I could garden. I could see myself here. Yeah, I could apply. And then the landlords were still there. And then I met them, and I spoke with them. And at this point, Michael had already applied the same day, and our application was already being pushed through. And I was like, it seems as if this is about to be our house. After we left, tears start running down my face, and gratitude just overtook me because the landlord said that they have been working tirelessly day after day in this house for about a month straight. And we had found out about a month ago. And that's when we started looking. And I knew that if God was making us wait, it was for a good reason. But what it showed me was that it wasn't available yet because God was preparing it for us.
Yeah.
It was being prepared, and he was preparing a home for us. And that's why it took a month. And that's why he brought it to us at this point. What if we overlooked it before and this was the one?
Yeah.
And there was just such a sense of peace, just knowing that the couples are like the couple is Christian. That was our highest priority. Just knowing that the home belongs to the Lord and God's hand is on it. That was our number one priority.
Yeah.
We're willing to go small, as long as we know this is what God has for us.
Yeah, for sure.
And so just the amount of peace that brought, and just, I knew that this was it.
Yeah.
And then when everything got pushed through and everything got accepted, and it was just like, God, you came through. You reserved this home for us. This is what you had for us.
Yeah.
And what's just really exciting about it is that I've absolutely fallen in love with this place. I absolutely.
It's a great house.
It's lovely.
It's a really great house.
Yes. And there's so much beauty in downsizing, which we're enjoying right now. We talk about it every day. Like, oh, I just love this house. I love this. I love that. Cleaning the kitchen takes 5 minutes.
It's so much quicker.
Yeah. The kids' rooms are downstairs. Michael prayed to God, and he said, Lord, if this house is the one for us, and it's the one you have your hand on and your peace in, let it be known by the fact that our daughter sleeps in her room and doesn't come to her room at night.
Which in our old residence, She came to our room at night, maybe 5 out of 7 days a week.
Probably 6.
But probably 6. I said 5 and it was a conservative.
It was conservative.
Yes.
So we've been here 4 nights, 5 days. Every single night she slept in her room.
Hasn't come to our room once.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
God's hand is on this place. And I love that my parents have like their own secluded area where they can just be. And the kids' playroom is downstairs. Their rooms are downstairs. And it's just so functional. It feels as if it's bringing us closer while also giving us our own space.
It does.
And it feels as if I'm closer with my children because their rooms aren't all the way upstairs to where if they just want to play all the way upstairs, they're really far and I have to look at the security camera to see what they're doing.
Yeah.
Now I can hear them, you know?
They're right there.
They're right there. I know what they're doing. And it's just been so beautiful. I absolutely love this. And there's so much beauty in downsizing. I just even know you talking to your friend Jamal, he was like, what did he say about downsizing?
He said you just don't lose downsizing. I mean, Jamal is a multimillionaire. Many of you guys know him, Jamal Miller, and they downsized at various times. And he was just like, oh, bro, you don't lose. Like he was basically saying that when they downsized, that was when their business simultaneously like blew up. So they had less expenses, but much more income and allowed for them to do so much more. And I just thought that was the coolest thing. And I believe that we're just going into a season economically within our country that it is better to be Joseph's than Job's. It's a season of utility versus abundance. What do I mean by that? There are things that you learn in downsizing. It just really teaches you how to prioritize.
Absolutely. God gave me a great revelation about this a few days after we got accepted to this home. And it really encouraged me so much and gave me vision. And so I want to share it with you. You're not downsizing, you're upsizing. I said, how is that, Lord? He said, you're going to increase in every single area. And I said, but except my home? He said, no, Amanda, including your home. I'm preparing your household to shift from being borrowers to being lenders. And you will be even more blessed in this smaller home because you heard from me, you trusted my voice, you don't complain, and the territory belongs to me. I want you to own multiple homes and have lordship. Take dominion over multiple homes and subdue them under my spirit. There are many spirits that lord over territories and it curses the land. This is why I brought you through this process to show you the spirits operating in your area. So pause. Throughout this entire process, I was just wondering, why is this process taking so long? And why are there so many homes under all these different gods? And why do I feel such a repulsion in my spirit? There's one home that was beautiful, but once I got out of it, I was like, I am repulsed by this home. It vexes my spirit. It makes me angry. I feel very uncomfortable in this home. Something's off spiritually about it.
Yeah, this is probably going to be one of Amanda's favorites, and she was just ticked off, and I was just like,
I hated it. I was like, so angry.
And that was the house that was 5,500. So I was like, great.
So that's why the Lord is saying this. There are many spirits that lord over territories and it curses the land. This is why I brought you through this process to show you the spirits operating in your area. Now take back enemy territory and subdue it. Lend to my people and populate the kingdom. This is my house. Speaking of this one, this is my house, because the landlords, the ones who lord over this land and own this property, are believers. So this house belongs to God. It's not like this belongs to some Hindu god that they've dedicated it to, and we're just trying to redeem it, even though it's under another authority. No, we're under God's authority, and we're under the authority of those who are under God's authority. This house belongs to the Lord.
Yeah.
And I said, thank you, Father. And he said, you're upsizing because you'll expand kingdom territory. And so that made me really excited because in this season of margin, Michael's word for the year is margin.
Yes. Base hits, baby.
And so our plan is to prepare to buy, may even be this home because we love this home. And it's so affordable to purchase versus other ones that we looked at. It's like, okay, we'll save up half the down payment this year. It's just like, no, like we could afford this. It's just we could do this and pretty soon, you know? And so imagine we buy this home and then we live in it for a few more years and then we rent it out and we get into another home. Maybe we Airbnb it, whatever it may be, but we're expanding kingdom territory because we're a loving couple. I mean, that's just good energy in the home, point blank. And two, because we love the Lord and we invite his presence in here and we are under his authority, this home belongs to the Lord. How many people can we bless because they just walk in here? You know, maybe they're just Airbnb-ing.
Yeah.
And they just walk in and they feel the presence of God and they have an encounter with the Lord. Like we are taking back enemy territory.
Yeah.
And when you think about it, all throughout the Bible, real estate is very significant to God. I'm not just pulling this out of my butt. Like this is very significant all throughout the Bible. You think about the Israelites in the Promised Land. You think about Jerusalem and the New Jerusalem. When Jesus comes back and he brings the territory onto the new heaven and the new earth, real estate is important to God. It's very significant. God just giving me that revelation makes me so excited about us being homeowners in the future because it gives me a conviction for home ownership that I didn't have before.
Yeah.
Before, I was like, why own a home when you can just rent? Like we can use capital and have that cash go into all these different places and always have access and always have mobility. Why own? It was a philosophy of mine. But now God gave me a kingdom perspective of ownership, subduing territory for his glory. And so now with that renewed perspective, it gives me a newfound conviction. It's not just about having place to put our roots. And it's not just about, you know, keeping up with the Joneses, but home ownership is about subduing that territory under the Lord and expanding his kingdom. And so I'm really excited about that. I'm so excited about what God has next for us here. Yeah, absolutely. I'm super excited about it too. And it just feels so good to feel in alignment with God, to see him come through on his promises. You know, one thing that I do is when I'm like feeling kind of anxious about something, I'll like go to my Google Calendar and like 30 days later, 60 days later, 90 days later, I'll actually make a note to put like update about blank. And in that note, in that calendar, like, you know, note or whatever, I'll say, this is what I'm going through. Today is the day. I'm feeling this way. And I am using this to see what God does in 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. And then you look back on it and you're like, oh, well, look at God working things out. I believe that many times we have to be reminded more than we're taught. And I believe that whenever you can remind yourself of God's faithfulness in the past, it gives you more faith in his ability to come through in the future. Absolutely. Well, we hope that this encouraged you. I know that as we were going through this process, I was thinking back on a testimony that a friend shared with me about her finding her home. And it encouraged me so much. And I'm so excited to see what God has next for us. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. And we will see you next time. Bye, guys.